Welcome to the Audio Description Narrators of America Know Your Narrator series bonus episode. Today, we're very happy to have Diane Johnson, the studio head of Descriptive Video Works. She's been with the company and formed it 16 years, started in 2003, and you'll hear about her passion for accessibility and some of her background. I'm so excited to have you here, Diane. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm thrilled to be here as well.
Let's jump right in. What do you love about audio description?
I love the fact that a number of years ago, people that were blind and vision impaired didn't have the same access as everybody else does. And I love how it has evolved over when I started 16 years ago. I also think it's very interesting that when you think about it, 16 years ago, closed captioning was 100% in broadcasting. And maybe audio description would have been 5%. So to me, there was just something wrong there. Do we say to someone that's deaf, hey, we care about you, but you're blind, not so much. And now I look at where we're at, and I am just absolutely thrilled because it's continued to grow over and over. From Canada to the US, we're just noticing that there's so much growth, and it's fabulous to see, and it's the right thing to do. It really is.
In addition to the growth of the quantity, in other words, the numbers of titles that have audio description, specifically within TV shows and movies, can you go into some of the other specifics of the evolution of audio description from your experience?
Yeah, it's surprised me actually, because when I first started, I thought, okay, this is television, it's broadcasting. And now, we do things for museums. We do the Olympics for NBC, for CBC Live. After I'd had the company for about 7 years, one of the main broadcasters came to me and said, hey, do you think we could do live? And we had always said there's absolutely no way you could do live. It was just like, it would be impossible. And he's a great guy and had been in the business for years. And I said, well, hey, we've got nothing to lose. You're not going to fire me. I'm not going to be mad at you. Let's just go in and try. And I said to him, so when do you want to try this? And he said, 2 weeks. And I was like, what? And he said, we've got a big awards show called the Junos. And he said, I'd like to try it then. And so we did it. And and since then, oh my gosh, we've done hundreds of hours of live description. We've done The Wiz Live for NBC. We've done Hairspray Live, a number of other shows. So that's one aspect that I thought would never happen. Then other things like universities came to us and they said, we've got a student in our course that needs to watch this video in order to, for their thesis or whatever it is, and it's not described. So really you think about it, what do you say to that student because they're blind? You say, oh, you don't have to do this. Mm-hmm. Or do you say, well, you're not the same as everybody else, so we'll just pass you anyway. So now we've been doing, things for universities, other things like a cruise ship. You think about somebody that is blind is going on a cruise. So then they go to the travel agent and they say, well, tell me about the cruise. And the travel agent says, well, there's a video on it. Just watch it. And they go, well, I'm blind. I can't see the video. So now we're describing that. Then they get on the cruise ship and they go, well, I'd like to do some things, some outside outings and everything. Yeah, well, just watch the TV in your room and it gives you all the information. Well, again, I'm blind. I can't see that. So there's so many different areas that were never even thought of. One of the things that I've really noticed is the enthusiasm now, because at first I would talk to a producer and they'd kind of look at me and go, I remember being at the Banff Television Festival and talking to producers, and they'd go, do you know how little money I've got for this entire production? And now you're asking me to spend more money to have it audio described. So now there's such an acceptance and an actual desire to have it done.
I'd love to explore a little bit more about that enthusiasm from your clients. What do you think that change was? Was it the culture? What was the acceptance? How did that happen?
It actually was surprising to me and made me very happy. Just an example would be, we work with a lot of different producers. So early on, if it was mandated by the broadcaster, so the producer would come to us and say, well, I have to deliver this, and, I'll do the audio description. So we do the audio description. Well, then the next show, now this was a number of years ago, but the next show that producer is doing, they'll come to us and say, you know what, it's not mandated, but it's only right to do this. So we want to do this. So that has been a shift in their way of thinking about it. And then another, to me, perfect example is Netflix. They are not mandated to do it whatsoever. They have not been. And they came to me about 5 years ago and said, we're looking at doing this. They'd done a lot of their own research on the QT, basically, where they weren't telling anybody about it. And rightfully so, they're deciding if they're going to do it. And so then we worked with them, working on the guidelines and kind of using our experience as the leader in audio description. And now all of their original programming is described. We're doing so much work for them. We're what's called an MP3, so it's a Netflix preferred partner, which took a lot to get to that level. But it also, they've come to us and said, can you do focus groups with kids? Because we were doing a lot of children's programming. And you think about it, you and I might say, well, this is what adults want. Well, what do kids want in audio description? We did 400 SpongeBob SquarePants shows as an example. And, you and I might say SpongeBob reclines in a chair. Well, that's not how a 10-year-old would see it. He would hear, he sits back in the chair. So there was different little nuances like that were very important, that we were really meeting the needs of the audience, of the genre of the show. So
when you talk about the nuance that directly affects the writing of the audio description, specifically with the focus groups, it sounds like you and your company are going out to our audiences and finding out what they want.
Absolutely. There's no way we could do it without getting their input. We did Narcos for Netflix. And so we had focus groups with people that were Spanish. Do you like the voice? Are we describing it in the way that it works for you? Is it too much description, too little description? I mean, if you look at Narcos, there's subtitles, there's a number of things going on. And if you do too much description, it will overwhelm somebody that's blind and they'll turn the show off. So it's just a fine line as to how much description to inform people and how much is too much. So it's just overwhelming.
And it's great to hear that the streaming services are reaching out to you about these details, that this is beyond just as you had said earlier, the mandate where it's, I have to, that new way of thinking is really exciting.
It is. It really is. And I think one of the other things that's new as well is people that are sighted are now starting to love audio description. I know for me, I have a lot of programs with the description on, so I can, if I'm making dinner, I can hear what's going on. If I'm doing household chores or whatever, you don't have to be watching the screen all the time. And if the description is good, you think about, say you're binge watching a show. Well, you know what the characters look like, so you don't really have to be in front of the screen. But if somebody is describing the action to me, kind of painting a picture, I'm able to watch it, so to speak, without actually watching it, just by listening.
And I'm imagining all the isolation that's leading to a lot of remote Zoom calls that sighted people are now in screen burnout.
Yeah. And it's crazy how our conversations go, like, what are you watching? Whereas before you might, have where did you go for dinner and all of that. But with COVID, it's like, so are you watching anything good right now?
Yeah. And to that point, what are you watching? That conversation is, let's call it water cooler talk, that it's a way to engage and connect with people, and that our blind audiences and low vision audiences are now able to have those conversations without going into the details of, oh, wait, what happened? It's almost a seamless connection.
Absolutely. And that was one of the things early on that really bothered me. I thought, oh my gosh, like the water cooler conversations, exactly. People are sitting around going, oh, did you see this happen? Did you see that happen? Well, the person that's blind, and I've talked to many of them about this, they absolutely feel that they aren't included socially. And so then what happens is people go, oh, we don't want to talk about it because so-and-so wouldn't have been able to see it. So they talk about it somewhere else. And one of the people that's in our advisory board that's blind, she just said, I'm the same as you. I just don't see. She said, I want to know what's going on. We were describing a design show, and I thought, oh my gosh, do they care that there's burgundy pillows on an oatmeal covered couch? And one of the people that's at one of our advisors said, of course I do. My girlfriends and I talk about design all the time. And I want to know all of those things. But you and I, where I might look at it and say, well, they can't really see. So what difference does it make? So that's, again, where to me, it's just so very important to go to the intended audience and say, hey, how can we do this better? And we continue to do it. So it's not like we say, okay, 10 years ago, we found out they wanted this, and the show, the style of show has changed. The things that, the way we're describing them may have changed slightly based on the audience changing too.
What a all-encompassing perspective to be able to grow your company. And not that it wasn't great to begin with, but as you said, the evolution, and as things change, you're getting feedback directly.
Absolutely. We just finished doing Breaking Bad, and on social media, it just went crazy. All the people going, thank you, finally I can watch this. I've been hearing about this for so long. And we don't think about that, most of us, and of course I do because I'm, with the company, but many people don't think about that, how, especially, thinking about COVID and how so many of us are isolated. And if you were blind or a blind child, what is it that you're doing for your entertainment? Not that you only have to do television or streaming, but it certainly is an area that is part of our day-to-day life.
How do you feel about challenges that you or your company have faced? Can you name an additional example? You've given so many great ones. I'm curious if I could put you on the spot. Is there another challenge that you or your company faced that you're really proud of with a solution that you came up with?
Yeah, I think one of them is we were asked to do a video game, Minecraft. And I was like, oh, wow, we've never done that before. And then I kind of laughed and I went, well, we'd never done live before. We did that. There's been a number of things. And I also knew that it was going to be really important to have the right people writing it. And I knew it had to be somebody that was younger and knew, well, not necessarily younger, but was somebody that enjoyed video games, somebody that was one of our really good writers, and somebody that had a passion for it. And I also knew that we would have people that we could talk to that were blind people that wanted video games to be described for them. So anyway, we did it. The company that we worked with is Keywords, which now owns Descriptive Video Works. And they came to us and they said, we love what you did here. And we just kind of, I smiled because I thought those are the things that I like to do, where somebody says, do you think you could do this? And why wouldn't we say, hey, let's try it? And we did, and we did that. Then we've just done a trailer for Assassin's Creed, and I think that the gaming world, video games is a whole new area that I would have never thought we'd be able to do, because I thought about it and I thought, well, how could you do it? But I think now that we've done, a couple of games, we've done a trailer. We're realizing that there's a lot of different ways that we can do it. One of the other challenges, you had asked me before, what other challenges do you have? Well, we had companies were coming to us and they'd have, say, a 30-second trailer, but it would be a lot of talking heads. And you'd go, oh my gosh, where are we going to insert the description here? Because you don't want to talk over dialogue. And then we looked at it and said, well, what if we, I said to them, if this is going to be online, does it matter to you if it's 30 seconds or 48 seconds? Because as we all know, on television, the show's 22 minutes or 44 minutes. You're really, you're stuck to those times. And we realized that with some of the things that we're doing online, they don't have to be that specific time. So what we could do is what we call extended video, so that there is time in between. We're able to extend it so that we can insert a voice and it doesn't look clunky when you see it. And so that was something that was new, because when you think about it, if you've got talking heads, there's just no place to insert what's going on, but you also have to paint a picture for the people that are watching. So that was one of the other things. Then I also do training for anchors and reporters. So you think about, you're watching the news, say, and they don't have time for the audio description ahead of time, because news is, at the minute, so to speak. And so I just said, I do a seminar on it. And I said, if you were to think about the program you're doing, say you're in a park and you have, like one of the ones we did, they were standing in a park and he was interviewing somebody. So a blind person would look at it and go, okay, where are they? I don't understand. Because in a normal situation, you wouldn't say, here we are in the park. But once you introduce, a news person, a reporter, to say to them, why don't you just add in, well, here, as we're in the park today, it's beautiful out here. Well, you would immediately have engaged that person that's blind into what it really looks like and feels like there. And it didn't take away from a sighted viewer, because you can't do too much description or the sighted viewer goes, yeah, right, I know we're in a park. You have to do it in quite a subtle way, but you can still get that information in there.
It sounds like that balance just goes along with the whole nuance of audio description. Then there are so many aspects that are decided and thought about and considered on so many levels.
Yeah, absolutely. And the voice is another part that's just so important. You think about the different genres of shows, and when you have a narrator that is really good for a documentary, but their voice isn't necessarily good for an animated kids show, you have to make sure that you're really looking at that audience and what they need for it to be all-inclusive for them.
When you talk about a narrator who's obviously talented and skilled and crafted in her approach, maybe not good for a certain genre, could you talk a little more about that? I'm imagining that an audio description audience, when they hear someone who's really qualified but miscast, that takes them out of the immersion of the experience. Could you talk a little more about that?
Totally, it does. Well, you think about if you were listening to an action show, and it's an action show, you can tell by the music. And one of the things that's very important for us is we try not to mess with the music in the way that, if there's kind of where the music is think of a horror show, and the music kind of in a way tells the story. So we try to be careful to respect the music that's there. But if you had, say, a horror show that was happening, and you've got someone that is speaking as if it was a documentary and doing it very matter of fact, it doesn't lend itself to that style of show. Having said that, there's a real balance, because you don't want the narrator giving away what's going on by their voice either. And, one of the things that I always say to the narrator is, when you're doing a comedy, and you're voicing a comedy, smile while you're doing it. We did 179 I Love Lucy shows. Well, I Love Lucy is an old series, but most of us still know that show. And you had to have the right kind of voice for that to be able to enhance the humor, but not tell it before it actually happens.
It sounds like that consideration beyond just the casting, but the narrator's performance, the narrator's approach does make a difference. That people talk about less of a performance, but what I'm hearing from you is that there is a nuanced delivery that goes with the production.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's also one of those things that you could have two different voices voicing a series, and it gives it a different feeling. You know, it's the kind of thing that you may feel, one of the things that I thought of when we were doing live, I thought, okay, who do I need to do live description? And I thought it's got to be somebody that's quick with words, somebody that maybe has done acting, where they're doing shows where they have to be quick. It needs to be someone that has a good voice, somebody that's an audio describer already. There's so many different things, but you could have somebody that's fabulous and then they have a voice that's really annoying and you're going to turn it off. Because, like if you've got somebody that's done, say, improv and they've done descriptive video writing, they've got a good voice, they've got a great vocabulary, they know timing. Those are all the really important things, especially for live, because you can't go back and say, can you rewind the tape? I didn't really mean to say that. I wanted to say this instead. You don't have that option.
Yes. Yeah. Where would you like to see audio description headed based on your dream world and based on where we are right now?
My dream world with audio description would be that all programming is described, that news shows, that their anchors have, whether it's taking a course or whether it's just understanding description, that they would also do that. You think about how often you're watching a news show and they cut to a video of something. Well, oftentimes that video could have been described ahead of time because they had the video before the news went on, and it wasn't. So, in my perfect world, I think it would just be normal. I remember, and I was in television when this happened, when closed captioning came out. And at the time I was like, oh, how ridiculous is that there's going to be these words across the screen? Oh my gosh, every gym you go into, every bank you go into, everywhere you go, has closed captioning. So I don't see why it would be any different for audio description. We really need to, especially, as we all know right now, we need to treat everybody with respect and understand the differences and meet those needs.
Is there anything else you'd like to share?
I'm just, I'm really pleased that you asked me to speak about this. We're really passionate about what we do and doing it right. And to me, that's the most important thing. If it's descriptions, if it's not done well, it will just turn people off. You think about if there's what we might consider as a sighted person, a small mistake where they said Bob instead of Bill or he instead of she, it totally changes the whole thing. The person that's watching that's blind can lose the entire show because there's been a small mistake. And that's why it's important to us to do a lot of, quality control. That's, one aspect of it. The other one, like I was saying, is the voice is really important. And I think the integrity of our company and the fact, and I really mean this, that, most of our people have been with us for a long time and they know all of the people that we work with that are blind and vision impaired. So, when one of our writers wrote the description for Castaway, you can imagine a show like that, how long that takes to write, because there's, so little dialogue. And at one point, I think it was 9 days it took her to write her. And she said, I was getting a headache and all I could think of is the people that I know that are blind, and I can't give up on this. I need to continue doing a really good job because these people really, it matters to me that I've done a good job so they enjoy that show. I can't just sort of slack off and go like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired of this one. I've got to do it right every time. And I think that's why we've got such great people, is because they really, really care and are passionate about what they're doing.
Oh, it's great to hear that passion come through so clearly in this interview, and also that integrity. How would you like people to stay in touch with you, either following you on social media or reach out to your company?
Social media is great. We're doing a fair bit of social media, or they can just send an email to info@descriptivevideoworks.com. And we love hearing back from people. We really do. It's always been my philosophy that you want to continue getting information. It's not like you sort of say, okay, this is how we've been doing it for 16 years. We always want to hear feedback. It's very important. And one of the things we love to do is when we hear feedback, we don't just sort of leave it at the sort of management level. If someone has commented on the writing of a show, the narration of a show, we always make sure that our narrator or our describer hears what the audience has said. Because you think about it, in some ways, they're working in somewhat of a silo. They can think, oh, I think I did a good job on that. When they hear back from one of the audience members that loved it or that said, hey, I kind of wish you'd done this a bit more, that's really valuable for us, really valuable.
That's great. Thank you again, Diane. This has been wonderful.
Thank you so much, Roy. I really appreciate it.